In this video, we are going to make our plot look a bit nicer and then add things like labels on the axes and the title. But before we do that, there's one quick thing that I want to mention, and that is there are a couple different ways that we can view these plots. And so the two ways is, one of the ways is what I showed was when you run the plot, then it'll display up in a separate window. That's one of the ways. And the other way is you can actually have it displayed in the IPython console. Sometimes it's better if you're working exclusively with IPython and you just want to see the plot immediately, you don't want a separate window or anything. So those are kind of the two big ways that we can view these plots, and if you want to go in between them, we can change a value in the preferences of Spyder. So I'll head over to Python preferences, and then this preferences will open up for the Spyder preferences, and you want to go to IPython console, go to graphics, and then I have mine set to automatic, and automatic will create a separate window, and it allows us more interactivity with the plot. So when the window shows up, those like buttons at the bottom that you can use to kind of navigate around. If you do inline, then it'll show up in the IPython console, but you won't be able to use any. There won't be any buttons for you to mess around with. So, but depending on what you want, you can change this backend, and you have to make sure that you quit out of Spyder and restart it, basically, for this to work. Okay, so now that we have this, let's get over to making our chart look a bit better. So one easy thing that we can do is add a title. So we can have a function on plot called title that I can add, and you can look at the documentation for, there's a bunch of other arguments that we can go with this, but we will just say, we'll just give it a simple title, so number of fruits sold 2017, and so we can run this and see the title. Yep, so here in the figure that shows up, we have the title at the very top here. There are other configuration options as to where do you want to put the title, and if you go back to matplotlib.org and click on the pyplot button and scroll down, there will be a function called title that you can mess around with. So we have that nailed, and so the other thing that we want to do is set a title or an axis label for the y-axis. So we can do that. There's another function called y-label, and that will label the y-axis for us. So I can say number of fruit, and this will be in the millions. So we can run this, and we see that on the left, you see that there is the number of fruit millions label on the y-axis, and it's even turned like this. And if you look at the Matplotlib documentation, there's ways there, if you don't want it oriented like this, or maybe you want to rotate it by 180 degrees, there's ways you can do that. Okay, so almost done here. The one last thing that we need to do is set up the x-axis so that instead of saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we use the actual fruit. And so there's a way we can do this using another function on Matplotlib called XTicks. In XTicks, for the use case that we're using with, we have to present it with, we're essentially going to take the numbers and replace them with text. So we need to tell Matplotlib which of the numbers we want to replace and what we want to replace them with. So we want to replace these bar coordinates here with the fruit here. So fruit here. So this will just replace the x chords with the fruit names. So this will just create a map between the coordinates of the bars and the fruit here. And because of how we split our list into, how we split our data, this keeps it in order, essentially. So when we look at this, right, so if we go back here and we compare these two guys, you notice that they're split in order. So we don't have to worry about any kind of out of order stuff. This will work for us. So we have the title, we have the label, and so now let's see the the x-axis have the actual ticks here. So if I run this guy again, you see that now we have replaced the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 with the actual names of the fruits, and we have a completed chart here. So you can see that apples apples sold the most, and grapefruits apparently didn't quite sell as much, and oranges and bananas were very close. Pears were a little bit more, but not quite as much as apples. So using this bar chart, we can look at different kinds of information and gain some insights out of this. So these kinds of column charts are great for categorical data. So here in the x-axis we have categories here, and then we have a numerical value assigned to each category. So these kinds of bar or column charts are great for this kind of categorical data. And then I'll just make one last subtle point, is that these guys are technically called column charts, but you'll hear people call them bar charts all the time. They're really just interchangeable depending on how you want to show the bars. So anyway, that's how we can add different chart annotations to any of the Matplotlib charts that we'll work with. So at any point you can say plot.ylabel, and that'll always label the y axis. You can give a plot a title, and you can use XTicks to change the coordinates. And as you might have guessed, as there's a y label, there's also an x label that lets you label the x-axis. But because we have our fruit labeled there, we don't have to necessarily label the x-axis here. So anyway, that's how we completed our column chart, and we have learned more about how we can do different annotations for the chart.